Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali, Coram, and Ed Carson with the breakdown of the action for Tuesday, January 16th, where we saw declines across the board for the major indexes. But underneath the surface, tech leaders held up pretty nicely, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, they held up reasonably well, and the market pulled back after strong gains last week. I want to take a look at three stocks doing well: Elastic, Cadence Design Systems, and Rambus.
Okay, well, we'll get to those three stocks, but first let's take a look at those major indexes. Why don't we? With the NASDAQ, what the audience is seeing here, down 0.2% on the day, the S&P 500 down 0.4%, the Dow down 0.6%, and small caps hit the hardest today, down 1.3%. So Ed, your thoughts on where we stand on the index level?
Well, the major indexes look fine. I mean, Dow's getting hit by Boeing, so you can sort of set that aside. NASDAQ was holding up, and it's coming down to the 21-day line, but it feels like even then that's doing reasonably well. NASDAQ didn't really fall that much. A lot of that has to do with NVIDIA and AMD and some other tech titans, and that did reasonably well. There is a little bit of concern about breadth, and the leadership took a little bit more of a hit. There's, more, some of the financials, some of the home builders a little bit. I don't want to get too much of it. Industrials and stuff along those lines. Home builders didn't get hit too hard. Industrials coming through the 21-day line. I mean, these can easily be repaired. It's not like they're plunging or anything, but there was just some falls. Yeah, that one was not so good. It was interesting. Energy fell a little bit.
Yeah.
Natural gas fell 12.5% or something like that. So oil stocks may have done better, but that was just huge for natural gas. Again, I mean, they had those swings. It actually doesn't look that big on the chart. I mean, but nonetheless, 12, like massive losses there. But techs were the one that held up pretty well. And when we look at chips, that one did well. NVIDIA has a lot to do with that, but even the side, there were some names that were doing pretty well. Software held up, I think maybe it dipped a little bit, but was looking pretty good. So yeah, I mean, I think all in all, it's pretty strong. Would like to see a little bit more leadership, but the growth tech stocks did pretty well, at least.
Yes. Okay, moving on, let's take a look at the 10-year yield. Here's 0 TNX getting back above that 4% mark, Ed.
Yeah, and it got above the 200-day line closed above the 200-day line for the first time in a month. So, I mean, that's notable. That seems to have been a resistance area. Fed officials said, yeah, maybe we'll go a little slower on the rate cuts. I don't know if that's really a surprise. They're going to try to slow people down, like not to say we're going to have tons of candy, everybody party, and they usually, they're going to roll it out. But in any case, this was a minor drag on the indexes today.
Yeah, as of now. And then one more way to look at the action underneath the surface is to look at the equal weight NASDAQ 100 and S&P 500. So here's a look at QQQ, the NASDAQ 100 basically flat on the day, closing off lows. QQEW down 0.3% today. So a mild decline there. And we can also take a look at SPY versus RSP, which we like to do. SPY down a little less than 0.4% and RSP down some 0.7%. So leaders continuing to lead, it looks like, Ed.
Yeah, tech doing pretty well. RSP a little bit more weakness than last week, and IWM or the Russell, that one is where that was where the real weakness, that kind of thing. So that is one issue, is that it's weakening further. It's not just hitting resistance at the 21-day. It's falling towards the 50-day or the 10-week line. So that would be just one issue out there. But yeah, some leaders are still doing well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll, of course, keep a close eye on that developing action there. And let's take a look at some standouts from today's session, starting with Elastic and the database software group ESTC, up 4.2% in some strong volume. And I know, Ed, you were all over this stock this morning on IEBD Live, and for good reason. Looking interesting here.
Yeah, I mean, it held those gains largely from that big gap up on earnings, so that was nice. And it found support around the 21-day line in this pullback. Broke a trend line, and you can whether it was tight or not, it broke it either way. Got above last week's high, rebounded from the 21-day line, and it's now has a new base on a weekly chart. It has a flat base, so this was sort of an early entry in there. It was pretty close to the 10-week line, didn't quite get there. But yeah, this is really strong. Some stocks sort of have found new bases right above the old base. This one is well above showing a lot of strength here. And you look at the numbers, I mean, it's really sort of really rapidly turning profitable now. I mean, it sort of was already in fiscal 2023. It's definitely more so in 2024, which is ending in April. Solid growth. I mean, steady revenue gains are really strong on the earnings front.
Yeah, I mean, something that we've been talking about, if you are looking for an expansion of market breadth, not only do you want the existing leaders to keep running, but you want participation from the stocks like this as well. And especially when you have that massive bottom line growth, a big move on earnings, accompanied by heavy volume. These are sort of the turnaround stocks, and then the bases that form after those explosive earnings moves that we want to keep a close eye on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next on the list, let's take a look at CDS. This is Cadence Design Systems in the design software industry group, a long time name on the long-term leaders list, and a gain of a little over 3%. It looks like it did not come in above average volume on the weekly, but it is there on the daily. So my mistake. Some volume behind today's move, right at those converging moving averages, Ed.
Yeah, 21 in the 50-day line, sort of breaking a very short trend line. You probably could have had an early entry, you know, for today for a few reasons, and it's getting close to the buy point. Even if you wait till the buy point, it's really not going to be far from the 50-day line
Right.
too much. So you could certainly do that at this point if you wanted to. This is,
Which
yeah,
is, by the way, what we care about with those long-term leaders is because they are more of like the tortoises than the hares, they often, and you can see by looking at this chart, hug the longer term moving averages, especially that 50-day or the 10-week line, even trade below it. So if you're using that level to keep you in, then the closer you can buy to that level, the better.
Agreed. And, you know, if you can buy it on a traditional breakout, but it would be more of a position trade rather than as a long-term leader. I mean, if it keeps on working, then you could treat it like one.
Right.
But yeah, this one is doing really well. I mean, it sort of moves hand in hand with Synopsys traditionally, but Synopsys did have a good day today, SNPS, but it's buying an Anesis or ANSYS or what, ANSS. I can't remember. And that had dragged on it today. I think maybe the deal was not as expensive as that people thought. So that one isn't doing as, so Synopsys bounced back, but this is a strong area. Synopsys and Cadence Design are two stocks that are in the software and chip ETF. So it's sort of
At that
definitely a
intersection.
smart,
Yeah.
nice connection. Chips and software are doing pretty well right now. So these are pretty strong areas. The relative strength isn't at a new high because it's consolidated a little bit, but it's not too far from it. And it's has a nice track record. I mean, it's okay to have that. It's had a steady slope. I wouldn't. It's like tortoise in here. We sometimes call these tortoises, but it's more like a car that's going like 50 miles down the freeway, but it never takes a rest stop. Whereas others are weaving through out of traffic. These other growth names, and sometimes they hit things or something goes wrong. These just keep on cruising along, and that is outperformance. They're not going slow at all.
Yeah. Much better metaphor. I like that, Ed. Okay, let's go to RMBS. So now on the chip side, and Rambus is in the same group as NVIDIA, which you mentioned, outperforming today. Also, a pretty nice day for Rambus, up 4.4% in an uptick in volume. Not a particularly strong close here for Rambus, but still a really nice gain on the day. And, not all stocks will have a super strong close on that first move that's buyable, Ed. So that doesn't mean that, there's imminent doom here for Rambus just because it didn't close at the very high of the day. I mean, it was still up 4%.
But that's a good point. It's also a reason why, just in general, why you want to try to buy as close to an entry. Now, you could have bought it as this bounced off the 50-day, 21-day line, or waited till it got above last week's high, somewhere in there. And that's why you want to have these watch lists ready. And so, I'm going to take advantage of it then. And so then if it pulls back, well, then you can either say, I'm going to pair my position, or or you can hold, whatever it is, you're going to be in a better spot rather than trying to buy there. But it had that nice bounce. It did steady somewhat. It was like, I think that there was a friend of IBD for sure, Mark Minervini, was recommending this stock, and so that may have given it that initial pop. We'll see. It did get back above this old buy point, which you could sort of still treat as valid. It hit the sell zone, but it did find support around the 50-day, 10-week line, so you could still sort of treat it there. It probably needs another week and a half or so to have a flat base, but there's definitely an emerging base coming in here. So there's reasons to like this. It certainly could have been a reason to start a position, especially if you got onto this early. There will be earnings in a few weeks, and there may be some other earnings that will influence it going forward. But some nice names here. Again, this is one where the fundamentals haven't been great. They're supposed to be great in 2024,
Right.
so we'll have to see. But that hasn't developed yet.
Yeah. Good stuff, Ed. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. That is it for today, but we will be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live. So please join us, investors.com/IBD Live for all the details on that. We will see you there. And then we'll also see you right back here tomorrow at the close.